15 Things the Bible Tells Us About Divorce. Welcome to my channel, God's Cure Jesus. The last 3 points will surprise you, so don't skip this video. Let's start. Divorce is a very sensitive subject. It touches many, evoking strong feelings and opinions. Our current society struggles with the difficulties of divorce. But what does the Bible say about it? The scriptures provide a lot of wisdom, guidance, and sometimes warnings regarding this important life decision. Whether you seek guidance for personal reasons or out of curiosity, the teachings from the Bible will offer much insight. Here are 15 things the Bible tells us about divorce that might surprise you. God's original design for marriage. Genesis 2:20 for NASB. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. This verse attributes marriage as intended for a lifelong relationship between husband and wife. This is what was initially planned by God, making marriage sacred. Divorce permitted in cases of infidelity. Matthew 19:9 NASB. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another, commits adultery. Jesus acknowledges that infidelity is a serious breach of trust and provides a condition under which divorce is permitted. This verse emphasizes how grave marital infidelity is. Hardness of heart. Matthew 19:8 NASB is said to them, because of your hardness of heart, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning, it has not been this way. In his discussion on divorce, Jesus says that Moses permitted it only because of human stubbornness and sinfulness. But this was not God's intention from the start. The Old Testament law on divorce. Deuteronomy 24:1 NASB. When a man takes a wife and marries her, if then she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found some indecency in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand, and sends her out of his house. This text reviews Israel's legal regulation of divorce. At that time, things were viewed through cultural lenses, demonstrating that formal documentation was needed in divorce. God hates divorce. Malachi 2:16 NASB. For I hate divorce, says the Lord, the God of Israel, and him who covers his garment with violence, says the Lord of armies. So be careful about your spirit, that you do not deal treacherously. This verse shows how God disapproves of divorce. It goes against his desire for unity. It stresses the seriousness with which God views the breaking of marital vows. Protecting the vulnerable. Deuteronomy 20:19 ESV. And they shall fine him 100 shekels of silver, and give them to the father of the young woman, because he has brought a bad name upon a virgin of Israel, and she shall be his wife. He may not divorce her all his days. It was meant to safeguard women against being abandoned for no reason and guarantee them fair treatment. It provides an insight into how justice and upholding those who cannot defend themselves were important even back then. The connection between adultery and marriage. Luke 16:18 ESV. Everyone who divorces a wife and marries another commits adultery. Any who marries a woman divorced from her husband commits adultery. What Jesus tells us here is that apart from the cases of unfaithfulness, remarriage after divorce amounts to committing adultery. This puts emphasis on the permanency of marriage and its importance. Marriage, a covenant. Proverbs 2:17 NLT. She has abandoned her husband and ignores the covenant she made before God. Proverbs describes marriage as a spiritual contract between two individuals and involving God. Thus, it highlights an element of spirituality in marriage. Reconciling instead of divorce. 1 Corinthians 7:10-11 NIV. To the married I give this command, not I, but the Lord, a wife must not separate from her husband, but if she does, she must remain unmarried, or else be reconciled to her husband, and a husband must not divorce his wife, rather than allowing for separation to lead to divorce. Paul recommends separation that should result in reconciliation as much as possible, indicating his preference for mending what was broken. Through this advice, they are encouraging efforts to heal and rebuild marriages. Unbelievers leaving their spouses to God's will. 1 Corinthians 7:15 NIV. But if the unbeliever leaves, let it be so. The brother or the sister is not bound in such circumstances. God has called us to live in peace. Paul acknowledges that if an unbelieving spouse chooses to leave the marriage, the believing partner is not bound. This provides a sense of freedom and peace in difficult circumstances. Compassion for divorced people given by God. Isaiah 54:5-6 NASB 4. Your husband is your maker, whose name is the Lord of armies. And your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel, who is called the God of all the earth. For the Lord has called you, like a wife forsaken and grieved in spirit. God's love for divorcees is shown through His comforting presence, which indicates God's caring nature toward those hurt by separation. Words of caution against unfaithfulness. Malachi 2:14-15 NASB. Because the Lord has been a witness between you and the wife of your youth, against whom you have dealt treacherously, though she is your marriage companion and your wife by covenant. God warns against marital unfaithfulness to show what loyalty and fidelity mean. Here, it points out that marriage as an institution carries ethical and moral obligations. Christ's love for His church, mirroring in marriage. Ephesians 5:25 ESV. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave Himself up for her. Marriage represents Christ's sacrifice for His church, hence influencing how couples should love each other in their union. This example pushes one into devotion that demands nothing in return. Importance of forgiveness in marriage. Colossians 3:13 ESV. Bearing with one another, and, if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. Forgiveness is always involved in rebuilding or preserving relationships, such as marriage. This verse shows the essence of forgiveness when resolving conflicts within marital situations. When making difficult choices, like those connected with divorce, one must seek guidance and wisdom from God. This fosters dependence on God's guidance and support in trying times. Seek God's guidance. James 1:5 ESV. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. When making tough choices, including ones regarding divorce, it is necessary to seek God's wisdom and counsel. This helps one rely on His guidance, even when in tough situations. Final thoughts. The Bible offers deep insights into the complex, emotional issues of divorce. It emphasizes the sacredness of marriage, the importance of faithfulness, and the possibilities of forgiveness and restoration. Although the Bible recognizes divorce, its general teaching promotes commitment and compassion guided by God. Applying these biblical principles will enable us to manage marital challenges that end in divorce with more wisdom and grace. More from hope, no matter what.